Hi, everyone. This is a Leadership with Heart podcast, and this is Heather Younger, your host. Employee experience is powered by emotions. Managers and or leaders within organizations get to choose which emotions they unleash from within the people they lead. Leaders, meaning supervisors or above in an organization, drive much of the positive or negative emotions by their actions or inactions, their words, or what they fail to say. When a manager chooses their words and their actions carefully, they exhibit great emotional intelligence. These managers are often thought of as leaders who care, or as I like to call them, leaders with heart. This special brand of leader drives engagement and loyalty simply by being themselves. Are these leaders perfect? Absolutely not. It is in their awareness and sharing of some of their imperfections that we realize their brilliance. In this podcast, I ask you to see yourself in the stories my guests tell about times when they were not the best versions of themselves, but how they used their hearts to guide them to a place of deeper connection with their teams and heightened leadership prowess. Enjoy. Hi, everyone. This is Heather with the Leadership with Heart podcast. And today I'm thrilled to have Mindy Flanigan on the call with us. She was actually referred to me. As you know, most folks are either referred to me or I handpicked everybody here. And she was referred to me by someone who was an attendee in a training I was doing for the Mile High SHRM group for professionals who were just looking to grow, in their career. So it was really cool to, this particular person, I remember her because she interacted with me quite a bit. And I told them that I was looking for folks that, had a big heart, that, led with heart. And so she thought of Mindy right away. So welcome, Mindy.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate you inviting me to today's session. I'm looking forward to it.
So where are you right now in your leadership journey?
Well, in thinking over as I was preparing for this, it might sound corny with the title of your podcast, but I am at this point in my journey where I'm in love with leadership. I started my own organization solo back in 2007, very small, became Real Deal in 2008. Now here we are 10 years later, and I've continued, as we've hired and grown, I've continued to elevate up to getting more comfortable with delegating and less of a control freak, but that's because I really love everyone on our team. And every day with them is a joy. And if you had me to find one place that I'm at in my journey, I am in love with leadership, but that's because I love my company. I love being the leader that's created this rallying cry, but most of all, I love everybody that's on our team. We have a great culture, and it's a unique culture. We're all 100% remote work from home.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
You hardly ever find that. So now that I told you I'm going to end up going off course. And so now I want to ask you, what are some of the things that you do for the listeners who are listening in? What are some of the things that you do that might be kind of unique or just very effective in the remote kind of culture engagement mix? What do you do?
Even when I worked in corporate America, which I cared never to go back to, quite honestly, one of the things I learned, whether you're remote or you're in an office with we'll call them direct reports, but I hate calling them that, the people that work with you every day, you got to give everybody individual face time. And when I had a commitment when I started to hire, that everyone was going to get no less than a one-to-one with me for an hour, no less than every other week. That really kind of set the tone for collaboration early on in team building. And then as technology has evolved and I've gotten braver with technology and I've hired some people who are great at technology, one of which who was at that session that you mentioned, who connected the two of us. We use platforms like Slack is an unbelievably awesome platform for how we collaborate behind the scenes and build an effective culture remotely. But because I'm the caregiver and the cheerleader type, I hope that trickles down into our work environment and has just produced this really nice, collaborative, fun culture, regardless of the fact that we have 10 employees in 3 different time zones in 7 states. So it's definitely been an interesting journey, but I couldn't have done it without the people that are currently on our team and are committed to building relationships with their colleagues, regardless of time zone and regardless of differing client bases.
The thing that's interesting, I was just recently at an event in Seattle, and it's called the Human First Club. And it's it's something that's kind of traveling around the country. There's different people that are like kind of speaking, but it's not really a speaking event. It's more of a collaborative event where people who are coming together that want to talk more about creating more human workplaces. And
what's that called again?
It's called humanfirst.club. That's the name of the kind of this newly formed organization.
Okay.
Yes.
I'll have to look it up. All right.
And so I flew there, and there'll be one in Denver as well. So if you're in Denver, then you can always, come to that as well. But it's really the idea of
Okay.
having people, irrespective of where they're from or their title, just having us come around the table to be talking about the discussions on how do we create a more human workplace. So the stuff that you do and what you're talking about really rings true to me. It makes me a little giddy that you're on the show as a result of that.
No.
I love it.
I'm a big fan of remote work. Would you mind if I told a quick story?
Yeah, no problem. No, go ahead.
I was convinced early on remote work could work, mostly because of my experience when I worked in corporate America. I was vice president of a human resources services company for a larger consulting practice in Baltimore, Maryland. And I had 6 other consultants reporting to me. But at the VP level, I was getting pulled into all kinds of meetings that really had nothing to do with me. And the more I was pulled into meetings, the less I was accessible to them, to coach them, to guide them, to mentor them. And I was pregnant, and I went into preterm labor, and I was put on 3 months of bed rest. And for that entire 3 months, all 6 of them said what an absolute pleasure it was to have me on bed rest, because they could actually reach me and interact with me. And they couldn't do that when I was in the office. And we continued to build these very productive, wonderful relationships with me working from my laptop in bed. And that's where I started to have my aha moment of, why can't remote work work?
Huh. Interesting. And that's the model you decided to go with. Yeah. I love it.
Yep.
That's awesome. Okay. Well, so based upon what you've said, what do you think the words would be that your people would just use to describe you and your leadership style?
Probably slightly ADHD, because I'm so high energy, entrepreneurial, and visionary that I tend to jump around a bit. There's one of my longest standing employees who's our HR services manager. She's great at managing up, and long ago she knew she was in the right place for me to say, I do it this way, not that way, and I tone that down. And she and I have been great to develop each other's managerial skills to suit our culture. But all in all, I believe they'd say I'm kind, I'm a caregiver, I'm a visionary, I'm a motivator. And I do genuinely care about all of them. And some of them would say I heap too much praise on them. Some of them don't want to be praised as much as I want to give, but I want to give praise as much as possible. That's how I'm wired.
I love that. Oh, I'm the same way. I'm even more excited that we got connected. Aren't you a CIO there too? Yeah,
and I'm CIO, but it's Chief Inspiration Officer. I wasn't comfortable it's because, we're inspiring HR. Yeah, I'm the owner of the company, blah, blah, blah. But I don't want CEO. It sounds too executive. We have no intention of being this large corporate entity. And I want my title to be reflective of, I sit up top, but I want to sit up top of inspiration and keeping everyone else in love with their work. I don't care so much about being CEO. It sounds too non-team corporate America for me.
Love it. Love it. That's just awesome. There aren't many people that would do that. That's for sure. I kind of went back and forth. I was a chief customer fanatic because when I first started Customer Fanatics, my company, it was customer and employee experience focused. And then I moved to mostly all internal and not external. And so I changed that. Now I kind of go back and forth. It's almost like with me, I have the JD that's after my name, the Juris Doctorate. It drives me bonkers. I put it on there because my husband and my best friend, they both are like, you earned that. You put those initials on there. And I would take it off for like years. They'd be like, put that back on there.
I probably keep that on there. That's. I mean, I haven't even pursued my SHRM SCP. If I were you, I'd keep JD on there for sure.
I know. I don't. Yeah, it's just a whole nother conversation to be thinking about that, and actually even just the leadership. So this is a different question, but it's still I think related. This idea of leaders, leaders with heart, but what we do for ourselves, kind of the self-care, or even ramping up our skills, and thinking about the importance of like having the SHRM, the SHRM certification, thinking about how important is that really in the work that you do. It may be very important, it may not. But when you think about growing you as a leader, what are some of the things that you do to grow you?
I wish I could tell you I love to read. I don't.
I'm the same way.
I love short magazine articles. So I love the Inc. magazine is my current excitement when it comes in the mail. Sometimes SHRM magazine has some really good content in it, particularly now that we've got this new head of SHRM, Johnny Taylor. He's just done a great job with SHRM. every once in a while I'll go to a conference where there's a difference maker there in the room. And the thing that made the most difference for me in terms of a leader took place at one of the Richmond, Virginia SHRM events, where there was a company there by the name of The Culture Works. And they wrote a book called What Motivates Me. And it's just the right size book for me, that it wasn't too intimidating. But the best part is it came with an online test called their Motivators Assessment. And I learned a lot about myself and how to keep myself engaged as a leader by taking this Motivators Assessment. But more importantly, I had everybody on my team take it, and we take into consideration the results of those Motivators Assessments to figure out who gets what project when, because someone may be motivated by something technology versus something impact. If you go to thecultureworks.com, it's a $40 test, and it has completely changed how we assign work and lead people in our organization. And it also tells you a lot about the type of leader you strive to be.
Ooh, that's awesome. I'm going to definitely go check that out. I love assessments. I'm like you, I'm sure there's just a lot of certifications I have to help organizations and people really kind of boil down and pinpoint the things that drive them. So I love that. Thanks for that. That's awesome. Okay.
I actually, my daughter in high school, she's trying to figure out how to prioritize her work and understanding, okay, if I need to get what I dread out of the way, why do I dread this stuff? Why aren't I more motivated to do this? And I had her take the Motivators Assessment from the student perspective. And she learned a lot about herself, which has really helped her understand, what do I get out of the way? What do I really love? What clubs do I want to get involved with that align with my motivators? So it's really an invaluable assessment, in my opinion.
Oh, awesome. Well, great for that. I'll definitely going to check that out for sure. Okay. So question for you. I usually like to ask guests on the show, is there ever a time, very specific time, if you can, and you just go into details about it, because it helps a lot in the learning, when you were just not really proud of your leadership? Maybe you weren't the best version of yourself in that moment. And then, after obviously you came out of that, and this is a journey. So we go in and out of these phases, but what did you do to come out of that and become the leader you are today? The one that really loves on your people?
It was probably an evolution of how I was just as a regular worker. One of my first jobs, I was a payroll specialist for a smaller organization in Syracuse, New York. And man, if I look back on myself then, I was feeling a little entitled with the chip on my shoulder and not at all in tune with the struggles of a smaller business. And they were giving as much as they could. And it ended up being years later, after I got promoted to an organization down that was kind of their parent company, so to speak, somewhat, down in Florida. And I took a job down there and started to evolve to leadership roles that I picked up the phone and I called my first boss there and apologized for having this entitlement complex when he first hired me. So it was sort of an evolution from how I worked as someone young out of college to evolving to that manager level and understanding what it was like on the employee side to be dealing with those entitled employees and how to coach them out of it. But even within that same environment where I wasn't my best self and I ended up being aligned with one of the best people I've ever known in my life, new to leadership, I had a benefits specialist who had a horrible attendance record and was known to be quite confrontational with people on the phone. And she had a history of rubbing people the wrong way. And I thought, again, new leader, so excited to get my first real manager job, that I was going to go in there and make a mark for myself. And it was almost a bully-like mark. And, I'm sort of, I was still young in a leader role trying to prove myself. And I was getting ready to fire her right before Christmas. And my VP of benefits at the time walked over to me and she put her hand on top of my hand and she sat down, and she's such a polished, wonderful woman, Barbara Bosch. And she said, I know you want to go in for the kill, but this is not you and you'll regret this. Do you have the right to terminate her? Yeah, but you don't want to do this right before Christmas. Let's try final warning one more time, and then you and I can revisit it in January. And she gave me pause to reflect on the type of leader I really would have rather been long term. And that happened back in 1998, and it still rings true in my mind all the time. So she made quite a difference in my life and my leadership style in that one moment.
That's actually one of the questions I was going to ask is a lot of times when people are leading, they're driven to lead by something. And so what would be the thing that drives you to lead the way you do with so much heart?
I think one of the questions that I was looking at as I was preparing for talking points, as I was saying, what is this all about? Where did this come from? And I remember as a kid, I would drive these kids in the neighborhood crazy. They wanted to play house. I wanted to play office. I wanted to be in charge. And my best friend to this day, Diana Platt, she'll joke. She goes, "Why did I always have to be the assistant?" And it's just kind of a funny, ongoing joke. But so I think back to my childhood and why I love that. But one of the reasons I love that is I was blessed to have very strong women in my life at a young age. My grandmother was a very big deal at AT&T. I would go once a month to her office every Friday, and I'd watch her be in charge. And I watched the amount of respect she commanded, even around men, way back then. And we're talking in the 70s.
Wow.
And then my mother was also a very strong and driven, independent woman who evolved from stay-at-home mom to a very high-level position with a liquor distributor. So I think it's that combination. It's what I saw. It's what I knew when I was younger. And then my personality kind of came out through it as I matured over time.
Interesting. That whole nature and nurture. It's for you is nature and nurture versus nurture. Yeah. Yep. I love that. And I agree with you. It does that having those strong women really does change a style of a young girl growing up and thinking about what the possibilities are for leading others and becoming great. It's pretty awesome. So when often we are kind of crazy busy, right? Just people. And then in the workplace and as an entrepreneur and as a business owner, we get crazy busy, and sometimes we're traveling and sometimes we're disconnected from our team. What do you do to reconnect with the team? And particularly, if you're out and about and just you're already disconnected to a certain extent just by geography, but then how do you reconnect with everybody to kind of make sure they know you're there for them, you're present, irrespective of maybe how much everybody's, going all over the place trying to commit and finalize tasks and projects?
So it's layered, but if you walk through a typical week, we start the middle of every Monday with a weekly huddle. I preset the agenda and I fill in the blanks, but I delegate out a lot of the talking points. I try and get as many people talking on this weekly huddle as possible. And, we share good news about business development. We share information about upcoming changes in state labor laws at the federal and the state level. There's good news moments every week. I either have them talk about success stories from the prior week or an inspirational word for the week. We make internal HR announcements, like our handbook's getting updated or something, but we always have this standing 1 hour of information sharing session and collaboration via conference call or Skype Business. Sometimes we'll do some training within it. If, somebody on our team is stronger technically than somebody else, then we'll do 5 or 10 minutes of screen sharing and training just to keep fine-tuning everybody's skill. But that's our first step in connectedness during the week as a team. Then, of course, we have these one-to-ones with everybody. Once a month, I do a business development huddle, just so we talk strictly about business development and our marketing message and how we're reaching out to new clients. And then at the end of the week, I usually use the Slack platform to send out a message to everybody that asks them to tell me, what did you win or what did you learn this week? It's something I learned through the Sandler sales training classes. So we start off with motivation and we end with reflection, and in between you're talking a lot with me or the HR services manager over the phone, and through that we've created this culture of collaboration where I think everybody's gotten an idea of how driven and busy I am. So if they're not sure how to answer something, then they know that Richard or Val or Lisa might be the subject matter on that topic, and they don't hesitate to pick up the phone and call one another.
I love that. And even I'm just thinking about Valerie was just, I remember.
Her nickname is Whiz Kid, by the way, if you haven't interacted.
That would not surprise me at all, given the way she was interacting and way she was almost kind of, talking with the crowd and sharing all the best practices in the group of, 40 people that showed up to my event. So I think that was awesome. I love to have, for me, my style tends to be super collaborative. So I don't want to be standing up being the expert. I want to facilitate everybody else's learning. I want people to be talking so we can learn from one another. And she was helping with that. So I thought that was pretty awesome. Yeah. And I could see that you kind of allowing folks to go and continue to develop themselves in that way and be a part of those conversations, I think is pretty expert as well. So that was awesome.
Yeah.
So for leaders that could be kind of struggling or stumbling in some way in their leadership, or just kind of at a crossroads, what maybe a pearl of wisdom you'd like to leave them with from today's podcast?
My pearl of wisdom, and I think it's one of the reasons I'm more in love with my company today than I was a few years ago, is how much I've learned in listening to TED Talks and following Simon Sinek and then working with these great people, is that it is really important that you spend the time finding your passion and then creating a rallying cry that everybody can believe in. We had our first retreat this past April. And one of the things that warmed my heart so much is that a lot of these people, we've been working remotely and building relationships with each other for years. And this retreat in April was the first time many of us had ever met in person. And I just sat in that lobby and I watched everybody. I mean, quite frankly, they didn't even need me there. I mean, they all walked in, they were hugging each other and laughing, and I was kind of sitting at the end of the table just sipping my glass of wine, smiling at all of this. But, what came out of that synergy and what we had built leading up to that event is we all agreed on a rallying cry. If you go to inspiringhr.com, you'll see that after years and years of fine-tuning our messaging, we landed on HR done differently. And as soon as we all agreed on it and built messaging around it in terms of what was our real passion and vision for small business human resource consulting, when we settled on HR done differently, it was a rallying cry that I loved, but I knew everybody in the room believed in, and it was something that they could message out as good stewards of our organization day in and day out. So when you find your passion and you can message your rallying cry and you can then get people behind it, it makes it really fun to go to work every day.
Ooh, I love that. You just gave me chills when you said that. I just loved what you just said. That was awesome. It's not hard to give me chills because I'm one of those really sentimental, like highly, I don't know, connected people, I guess. Right now I could just come hug you through this podcast. But
well, thank you. I would hug you back.
But I love this. I love what you created, and I appreciate this point. And for those listening, hopefully you can hear this passion, but also, I've taken away some great tips. I know I've written down plenty of notes. So Mindy, for anybody who might want to get a hold of you, what might be the one way they can do that if they wanted to follow up for any reason?
No, there's a multitude of ways. I'd give you my personal email address, but then I'd have to spell it out because no one seems to be able to spell Flanigan the way my last name is spelled. So info@inspiringhr.com automatically routes to my email address. I'm on LinkedIn a lot because, I get to do that stuff because everybody else is doing the work and I'm leading it. So you can certainly find Mindy Flanigan on LinkedIn and send me a private message. Click on the Facebook page. All of our social media links are right on inspiringhr.com, or fill out the contact us form right on the web page that routes to me as well.
Awesome. That's great. And I'll make sure to put some of this stuff, and obviously the bio and everything will be in the show notes so you can check that out. So for those listening, this is good stuff. These nuggets are awesome. We want to make sure other people can get access to it. And so if you liked what you heard, go to iTunes or wherever you listen and make sure that you rate the podcast. And then if you have an opportunity to review it, because what happens is if the algorithms actually move that up. So when people are looking for leadership podcasts, this can go to the top and they can hear great things like we're hearing right now from Mindy. So do that. And, I do know that there has been a big increase in those listeners that are out there. So I do want to thank you for your support and for listening. I think the message is amazing. I have people that reach out to me wanting to get on the show as a way to promote something they have. And I'm really not interested in that. I want to have these heart-based conversations with true leaders who have their own struggles, but who really have the focus of their people first. It's really the main priority of the work that I do and of this podcast. So thank you so much for listening. And Mindy, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you, Heather. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to the Leadership with Heart podcast. You can grab the show notes by visiting customerfanatics.com. And don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter.